Hello everyone, welcome to Know Your Customer. My name is Kenfield Griffith, CEO and co-founder of mSurvey. I'm excited to introduce today Claire Munene, Chief Commercial Officer of mSurvey. And I'll be chatting with Claire today about the customer and the customer journey and what it really means within a business. Claire, welcome.
Thank you, Ken.
Great to have you here. Here at mSurvey, being the Chief Commercial Officer, help us understand, why is the customer so important? I mean, why are you so passionate about the customer?
To me, the customer is the business. There exists no business without a customer. That's number one. The customer is the pulse, the heartbeat. They dictate the rhythm within the business. And therefore, that's why the customer is very important to any business. Any business that wants to grow, any business that wants to evolve and do new things can only do so if they only understand their customer better. And that's why for me, the customer is a very important backbone of any business today.
You're passionate about the customer, but most importantly, you're looking at growth on the continent, specifically with the businesses, right? And what's driving that passion, and how do you see the two working, whereas the customer and the business on the continent, and what do you see for the future?
I think it starts with identifying myself as African. I'm African, and I feel like part of my contribution to growing my heritage is driving transformation in Africa. Now, how do I do that? The only way I see myself as an individual contributing to that is being able to leverage with my talents, my experience and my skills. And so that comes through the passion for businesses, because that's where my experience comes from. How I see this play, I think Africa is rising right now, and the reason for that is two very important things. One is there's a lot of, in the last few years you've seen, there's a lot of direct foreign investment coming into Africa. And so that's a critical building block in terms of resources to be able to grow for any country. The second thing I see is technology adoption. It's very high right now. Yeah, it's at an all-time high. And so that's another tool for growth that's available. And so the remaining tools needed to harness that growth then becomes businesses being able to be equipped to deliver that growth. And that's where I see myself playing.
It's really good to hear. I mean, so you talk about the customer and the customer experience, but being the Chief Commercial Officer, you've probably seen metrics or indicators to show that why the customer is really important to a business. Have you seen that correlation between the customer experience and revenue with the business that you work with?
Yes. So even back in the day, a few years back when I was still at Safaricom, even before coming into mSurvey, the one major metric globally that was understood to be able to be directly tied to revenue was NPS, or Net Promoter Score. And even then we used it, but even in a different form. It worked pretty well on the whole, but what was missing back then for us was the ability to be able to be more proactive than reactive, because it was a score you would look at maybe quarterly, biannually, however that definition was done. Now, today, let's fast forward to where we are today, where it is possible to be able to measure our business in real time through transactional Net Promoter Score, which is one of our core services that we deliver through our platform. And for me, I think that has been more phenomenal than back then, because now, literally in real time, you're now able to make changes in your operations that create efficiency that at that point you take it, you can begin to enjoy, as opposed to waiting for reports that take time, and then you begin to run whatever project or program it is to drive that benefit when you've lost so much time.
You've been really in touch with the consumer, specifically the African consumer. What was that journey like at Safaricom?
I think it was a very exciting journey, and I say exciting because it was the advent of mobile. And so over the years, that experience allowed me to be able to understand the African consumer then, the Kenyan consumer specifically, and their evolution all the way to where they are now. My first assignment actually was working in what is called the back office that does first line support, and so it was actually working with the customer. That was my first role. And being able to do that over time, and then I moved into working on transformational projects for also again working for the customer, and these were projects that were aimed at creating efficiency for customers and customer delivery, and evolving into being responsible for driving consumer revenue within Safaricom as a business unit.
That's a lot.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about products. I mean, and products are very important, right? In the sense of really positioning a product that the customer wants to use it. And some of the things that you've done at Safaricom was Oko Jahazi and also Bonga Points. I mean, just take us through that journey as far as how did you nail it? Because you really had to understand the consumer.
To better explain it would be to take you very quickly through the experience through one of those. So I'll pick Okoa. So when you look at Okoa Jahazi today, it has really evolved over time. Initially, we had done some benchmarking in terms of what people were doing in other markets as we were still young in mobile, and we discovered they had this sort of credit facility that they were giving to customers. And then having to bring that back home and adapting it to our own cultural situation, because we had seen some key learnings where customers had certain developing habits. They would use a certain amount of money and leave a balance that only allowed them to call first thing in the morning before they did their full top-up. And back then, we had to call back a sample number of customers and find out why. And what was consistent along the board with all of them was that they didn't have a way to be able to drop it when you were home at midnight or at 1 or whatever that time was, to allow you to be able to, to communicate. And so they would leave this little bunch of credit, not like today where, I mean, with our technology at mSurvey, you're aware, it allows you to be able, we could have been able to do that in a flash, literally. Oh well, but now we know.
What is mSurvey doing to help businesses understand the African consumer?
mSurvey provides a platform that allows businesses interested in doing business on the continent to be able to access credible data and information and market information that empowers them to run their businesses efficiently against the backdrop of a very diverse and evolving African culture.
Really appreciate having you today and to driving this into the future.
Thank you for having me on the show.
So that was it for our session of Know Your Customer. I really appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon.